Hello everybody, welcome back to another video for the day. Now we're going right back into r/Tales of Neckbeard, the good old storytime cringe that you can smell through the internet. Alright, but beforehand, be sure to like the video, comment down below during the video if you see something you would like to discuss, and afterwards consider subscribing to the channel and becoming part of the ever-growing amazing notification squad. Thank you, or let's get right into this. Our first story comes to us from username RobotPancake1. Thumbfrick tries to grope my girlfriend and run away. I've recently been on a Reddit video binge on YouTube and discovered the phenomenon known as the neckbeard. Then I found out I've got a shot ton of stories of guys who perfectly fit the description of a neckbeard, so I ended up here. Hey, if you enjoy seeing all of your videos, hey, guess what? You're on one. So I'm in an amazingly happy relationship with my girlfriend. We fell in love at 13, and it's been a cool 9 years since then, and it's been nothing but the greatest. I really cherish her, so due to that, I'm also super overprotective of her. Not like overprotective in the sense that I limit her, but I get really tense and agitated when a guy seems like he's hitting on her or has feelings that he really shouldn't have. I don't really want to brag either, but my girlfriend's insanely beautiful. I'll call her Jess. She gets a lot of attention, and unfortunately with that comes a ton of unwanted attention. This was last year, and we were at a mall nearby after attending our city's annual festival. We were browsing around EB Games. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a Canadian GameStop. No, I've had a couple. And we were chatting and making comments on the various games, figurines, and toys that occupied the shelves. We stumbled upon a copy of Fallout 4 for the Xbox. This was during the Steam summer sale, and she had picked up Fallout New Vegas and played the shot out of it. She's the type of person who really enjoys sappy stuff, so when she found out that the sole survivor's spouse dies at the start, not a spoiler, and there was a mod that allowed you to resurrect the spouse, she really wanted the game. I owed her, so I agreed, and we pooled our money and found out that we had $33. Perfect, since Fallout 4 was $30 on Steam. Not perfect, however, since that's in American pesos, and it's actually $40 for us Canadians. We had 33 Canadian rupees. She had voiced her disdain quite loudly. I looked around frantically since she was super freaking loud. No one paid attention, thankfully, but I noticed a guy looking at Jess kind of funnily, but paid no attention to it since I assumed he was looking at her because she was loud and not because one of the freaking straps of her sundress had fallen off. So we kinda stand there for a bit before she does a weird thing with her chin where she pulled her head back or something. Kinda like a chicken when they do that clucking thing, but instead of clucking, she raised her eyebrow and turned around. I didn't know why she did that, but after recounting about it today, she told me there was a horrible smell. I can't smell, so I didn't really pay any attention to her reaction. I hear an ahem, and then I turn around. Now, before I describe this guy, I don't mean any offense to anyone, but I really freaking hate this pathetic sack of shot, so I'm going to describe him in full freaking form. Standing in front of us was this frat fricker. He had a filthy freaking black sweater, probably from the barrels of nut his micro dong squirts out each day. He had this shoddy anime shirt with Miku Hatsune, or whatever the heck his oily stained mouth calls it, sitting on his shirt, and it had what seemed like freaking yogurt splattered across it. God knows if it was yogurt or what people drink in heck, aka neckbeard nut. God save us, his hairy stomach and belly button were showing too. The acne, oh god, the acne. I had a shot ton of acne when I was younger, but this guy, if I had the acne this guy had, I would have offed myself. Like, if skin disease were a person, it would have whatever the frick this guy's name is, plus some dumb butt words in Latin. He had like 3 chins, like a flight of freaking stairs. I could climb his huge but freaking mouth and lips, and seemed the result of him probably doing that stupid Kylie Jenner lip challenge where they take a cup and stick it over their mouth, but instead of taking it off, he kept it on for 7 freaking years. His nose, he had what I like to call a tooger, which is a booger retarded brother. Just imagine it. He had a ponytail. I don't want to talk about it. No fedora, unfortunately. Jess is too innocent, and she smiled politely at the man. His eyes lit up on seeing her face because she's beautiful and because she's freaking Asian. Neckbeards like to fetishize Asians if you didn't know. A true gentleman should be able to spoil his lady, he proclaimed and revealed a $10 bill. Oh god, Jess really was too innocent. She gave a small yes at what he said, one, because she had no idea what the frick he was babbling on about, and two, because it sounded romantic or something. He beamed at the response and looked at me with the most smug freaking face in the history of existence. He handed the bill to her and just smiled brightly and raised her hand. I don't think the guy knew what to do. I bet at first thought her raising her hand was the universal sign for I am going to mess around with you for a week straight and then live with you, giving you unconditional love. But then he realized she wanted to high-five him, and he did this. He pointed north after contact was made. I shut you not, I was flabbergasted at how his microdom wasn't as small as I thought it was and just stood there, just didn't notice. So we paid, just waved goodbye at the man, and we walked away. I had to take a dump, so we made a detour to the particularly quiet and empty part of the mall, the one with like 4 washrooms. No one went there since it was the most disgusting, but I didn't really know at the time. I took a bit longer since it was dirty as heck, and I hear my girlfriend scream as I'm pulling up my pants. I ran out without washing my hands, and I saw Jess covering herself while the guy had a scowl on his face. Before I tell you what happened after, let me tell you what happened before that. Basically, Sir Shothead found Jess in the hallway and started bombarding her with questions. He asked her name, she said Jess, he gave him his name, and it sounds something like Weeb Frick Smith, and if she was Japanese. No, she responded, I'm Korean. He asked what kind of anime she watches, and since Jess is a huge anime fan, she gave him a list of her top like 20 favorites. Guy gets wet since he had found his almost dream girl. And then he asks about her fun experiences. I'll be honest with you guys, since this shot is anonymous, we're both virgins and plan to stay like that until marriage. She replies with, no, I don't have any experience. She was really freaking scared and creeped out now. From what I've read, incels really hate women who have premarital messing arounds. He was probably practically foaming at the mouth at the girl he had found. He asks about fantasies. No, she didn't have any, and Guy frowns. Then he smiled or some shot and made the move towards Jess's chest. She moves back, and that's when the scream happens and when I sprint out of the bathroom. I bought you that game, he had yelled and then said something incomprehensible. She screamed back at him and then noticed me, so she waves her arms frantically. Frickface looked behind, sees me, and starts bolting as fast as he can. Rolling a cube across the hallway would be faster than this guy running. A fetus would have made it to the doors before this guy. I ran after this dumb frick and I pulled his hood and he swiped my hand, and I can't make this shut up. He freaking roared, bruh. I had stopped for a moment trying to make sense of what happened before I said frick it and frickin' rammed the 110 kilogram body into his 250 kilogram sack of shot, and he fell to the floor. The disappointment was screaming right now. He was probably scared of what had happened now that he had been caught. The rest is history, since the mall guards came in and they escorted us out. One of the guards questioned us and a ton of people started crowding around the hallway entrance since like 4 or more security guards came to try and restrain this obese frick. We left since Jess is shaken up and I comforted her when we came home. We didn't really know what the heck to do since this was the first of many instances where people had acted this way to her. We asked ourselves if we should report the guy to the police, but figured the security guards probably already did that though. I remember the copy of Fallout 4 sitting in a bag on our couch existed, so I popped it in our Xbox and our day became a little bit better. I hope you guys really did enjoy that game. Unfortunately, it really does suck of all this stuff that happened, and I hope this doesn't keep you from going to the mall in the future. Our next story comes to us from username Hunting Red October. Pajama Beard Encounter 2. That's not a gummy worm. Since my first Pajama Beard post attracted some attention, I present to you my second noteworthy encounter with the PB. For reference, this is only 48 hours after the encounter detailed in my first Pajama Beard post. The cast. Me, October, 17-year-old female who enjoys elk jerky, again important to future stories. Pajama Beard. PB, the 22-year-old male werewolf who was determined to fill my life with autism. PB's mom, the overweight middle-aged white woman who spawned our neckbeard friend. Dawn, owner of the lodge, our cabins, aka my boss. Lodge is in quotes because it is nothing more than a foundation due to an avalanche, then a fire. The lodge was rebuilt 5 times before they gave up on it. 2 days after my arrival at my summer job, after my first encounter with PB, I had begun working as the cashier in the tiny bait and tackle shop at the main camp. Yes, I am aware that according to California state law, this is illegal, and no, I don't care. My job here is pretty simple. I ring people up and try to sell them somewhat overpriced fishing bait and snacks, or sometimes try to sell them firewood. All goes fine for 2 days. The shop is open from 9 a.m. to 3, but for an hour before and an hour after, I run a little shop I do and a cabin cabin cleanings or grounds maintenance Dan asked me to. Also, around noon to 1 o'clock, which is my lunch hour, I fish. The third day begins. Typically, cabin 13 needed to be cleaned, so I scramble over there and scrubbed that barge top to bottom as guests arrive at 11 a.m. and I do the cleanup/prep. Due to the strange arrangement of the cabins, 13 is only a small privacy line of trees away from cabin 17, the cabin in which Pajama Beard and his parents are residing. I haven't seen PB since I spooked him 2 days earlier, so I think nothing of it and continue doing my job. Unfortunately, as I'm rushing to leave 13, I was running about 10 minutes behind. The stove was really nasty. With the glance over at 17, shouldn't have done that. I noticed one of 17's shades is pulled back. 17 has 2 nice big front windows, and I can just make out the pudgy figure staring at me. Knowing full well who it was, I look away and increase my already fast pace to the tackle shop's rear mudroom / the closet in which we keep all the cleaning supplies. The morning before my lunch break goes by uneventfully. I end up dusting most of the shop because stuff is so rarely purchased there, it gathers dust and no one wants to buy dusty chips, sealed or not. I sell a bundle of firewood to someone who had come up from the campground though, so that was good. 12 o'clock rolls around and I take my break. I decide to make myself some mac and cheese back in my own cabin. Kraft mac and cheese, yum. And note, at this point, I still hadn't driven into town to buy fresh groceries. After eating, I fish the stream for a little while. I head down through the campground and then back up, and I end up catching my limit in about 30-ish minutes. I found 2 really nice holes with a bunch of hungry trout. On my way back, I stop by my cabin briefly to put my catch in a bucket of cold water and grab some of the homemade elk jerky that had been given to me by a family friend. I walk towards the shop entrance and my mood takes an immediate 180. Standing at the door to the shop, waiting for me, is PB. Darn, I thought myself internally, I thought I had scared him off. He looked towards me and in a droning voice, he is no longer trying to fake a deep voice. I've been waiting for 15 minutes, the sign says you open at 1 o'clock. Sorry, I replied bitterly, my dinner doesn't catch itself. I don't exactly recall what he said in response, but it was something having to do with how girls can't hunt and fish, as well as men can, or some crap like that. While he was talking, I noticed he was wearing pajamas. Again, oh yes, I replied sarcastically while opening the door. I could smell him really bad this time. I'm sure someone with your abilities is more than capable of providing your own food. PB picked up on my sarcasm, and while I turned the lights back on and took my place behind the counter, he droned on about how his abilities were not something to joke about and how he had only spared me 2 nights prior because I was a fair young maiden who was simply made a foolish mistake, and since he was so wise and merciful, he decided not to prove himself a human meal and had instead elected to consume a young doe. Never in my short, sweet life thus far had I felt so much disgust and secondhand embarrassment. At the same time, this guy both belittled and praised me in the course of a few sentences. Upon finishing his monologue, he came to the counter clutching a cherry Pepsi and 3 bags of Cool Ranch Doritos. I rang him up and he noticed the elk jerky sitting on the counter. I had been snacking while I was blabbing. How much? He asked in a stuffy voice. Not for sale, I replied, void of any emotion. I insist, he said, shoving a wad of bills in my direction. That smelled like a sun-baked porta potty. I cannot sell you my elk jerky as it's homemade and not a store item. I reply, now growing agitated. Elk jerky? He replied questioningly and staring at me with a newfound interest. While he was doing this, I was counting his change, though I could still smell his money on my hands. You like elk? He asked. Yeah, I said. Better than beef? I see. He said that in sort of a creepy, fascinated voice. Well, if I can't have that, then I'll take a free gummy worm. He then proceeded to grab this gummy worm. Sir, I said, trying to warn him. No. He cut off trying to be smooth. Call me Pajama Beard. Pajama Beard replied as quickly as he could. That's not a gummy worm. Too late. This experienced and skilled hunter had just chewed and swallowed a freaking mouse tail. Not a literal mouse tail, but a specific kind of trout bait. Picture attached. I'll see if I can put one up. The fearsome predator then went from ghostly pale to a shade of green and proceeded to speed waddle out of the shop, taking his kill of Doritos and Pepsi with him. As soon as the door to the shop closed, I laughed the most hysterical laugh of possibly my entire life, and I couldn't stop until I started choking. The afternoon went calmly Shortly after that, until a shrieking voice filled my ear. Have you ever heard an angry stellar blue jay? Well, imagine that, except ear rope edition. That's what this woman sounded like. Dan then appeared in the shop doorway with this lady and was still screaming, "Your employee tried to kill my son! She fed him fish food!" I was dumbstruck by what I had just heard. Dan had looked at me dead in the eye and asked, "October, did you give this woman's son bait and say it was a yummy worm?" I paused, still in shock at what I was hearing. I then, through gritted teeth, explained how PB had ingeniously grabbed the bait from the jar on the counter and helped himself to its soft, rubbery insides. The woman scoffed at me and called me a lying pig, and then demanded I apologize. Not wanting to be sent home only 3 days into my 3-month work trip, I reluctantly apologized first to PB's mom and then to PB himself, who had extremely red and watery eyes. In my head, I thought, has this little Clint been crying? But said nothing of it out loud. I instead just shot him the dirtiest looks I could muster. Once they were satisfied with my apology, they left, causing the building to shake a little. Dan, of course, asked me again what had happened, and I did my best to explain the entire event, starting with me opening the shop again late, all the way to Pajama Beard eating the mouse tail. After all was said, Dan chuckled a little and gave me off a few minutes early for the trouble, as he put it. In hindsight, I shouldn't have apologized. I should have let Dan fire me and send me home right then and there, because after this event, Pajama Beard would go from gross and annoying to a persistent borderline harasser who would make it his goal to my summers and have me his mate, all because he would take my love of elk, but all meats in general really, way out of context. But that's for next time. Stay tuned for more tales of our lovesick pajama-wearing, bait-eating wolfman. Sometimes, in all honesty, you just gotta let natural selection do its thing. If he wanted to eat the thing that he thought was a gummy worm, but it really wasn't a gummy worm at a bait shop, really, you should have thought that one through. Yeah, just let him do that. And with that, that is going to have to be it for the video. If you would like what you have seen, be sure to like the video, comment down below what you liked about the video, and consider subscribing to the channel, becoming part of the ever-so-growing, amazing notification squad. I'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.